phones, and when we're ready for questions, please come over here to the podium, state your name and your outlet, where you're from. So joining us today for this announcement are Mayor Mike Duggan, Chief James E. White, Representative Alabas Farhat, Representative Tyrone Carter, and we have officers from the neighborhood police officers and the crisis intervention team.
Well, good afternoon, and Chief White and I wanted to make it a point to thank Governor Whitmer, Representative Tyrone Carter, the head of the Detroit delegation, Representative Alabas Farhat, who has been a great advocate for public safety, and the Michigan legislature for the appropriation that is allowing us to add 25 more police officers to the Detroit Police Department. This could not come at a better time. As many of you know, late last year we had 300 vacancies in police officers. But with the $10,000 pay raise, not only has recruitment improved dramatically, but we've had a number of officers who left who promptly came back to DPD. We had 300 vacancies late last year. Now we're down to 150. And early next year, we will be fully staffed for the first time in many years. We need more resources, and with today's support, we're going to be able to add 25 in an area we particularly need it. What we have done with the additional officers is your traditional public safety response. And the first week of April, you might remember, we had some shootings downtown. We had a terrible shooting in Rouge Park, and people said this was going to be a long, difficult summer. But because we had additional staff, the Detroit Police Department has done an outstanding job in downtown through our police departments, and more recently, breaking up illegal block parties that have been popping up that have been the subjects of mass shootings in many cities in the country. Now, we go into every weekend fully prepared for all of the possibilities, but when you have that kind of ability to respond, we can keep the public safer. That's the law enforcement side. We also have a prevention side, and today's funding helps that. I'm really pleased that this month we have started the CVI, the Violence Intervention Group, we call Shot Stoppers. Those 6 organizations are out in the street today and are funded, intervening with groups that tend to be beefing with each other, and we're going to see the benefit of that. But with today's funding, we're going to add 25 officers, 11 of them in our mental health unit, and 14 of them as neighborhood police officers. These are officers engaged in prevention. What the neighborhood police officers do is develop the relationships in the communities. They'll be partners with the Shot Stoppers teams, so we can have a relationship when something comes up. The police aren't showing up for the first time. They're known in the neighborhood and trusted. And last weekend, I was really pleased. I was out at a gathering, and somebody came on the east side, told me a story that they had a call in their neighborhood for somebody who was having a mental break, was on the street acting in a very way that they felt was at risk to the neighbors, called 911 and said, I couldn't believe it. When the police car pulled up, a mental health professional got out of the police car and talked to the individual, got him calmed down, and he got in the car and went to the crisis center without incident. She said, I didn't know you had mental health professionals responding with the officers. With today's announcement, we'll take our contingent from 19 to 30 of our patrol cars that will have mental health responders. This is the kind of department that we want to build, one that is effective on the law enforcement side, but also is a national leader in dealing with those with mental illness, in building partnerships with the community, in building prevention. And Representative Carter, Representative Farhat, with what you've done today, you're going to be able to see us expand on that. And we're hopeful in the future that there's a dedicated revenue sharing source so that we can plan long term. But there's a reason why, as of today, the homicides in the city are down 11%. The carjackings in the city are down 25% from a year ago. It's because we've got the resources to address these issues. But resources by themselves don't do you any good without leadership. And I'm pleased to say that we have a police chief who is one of the great leaders in the country. And so let me at this point introduce Chief James White.
Thank you, sir. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Super excited about today and what we have before us and the opportunities that the mayor talked about. You know, we've seen increased numbers come back to the department. We're recruiting better. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council, for this incredible raise. And that certainly is part of it, right? You get the officers back, and then you get the opportunities that we have to deploy strategically to reduce crime. I'm fortunate. I've got a mayor who understands crime as much as I do. He's a former prosecutor, so that part's easy, explaining what we need to do. In fact, some of his ideas are innovative to me as the police chief. So we look at those things, but then we talk about the neighborhoods, and we talk about this crisis called mental health. And we see what we have in mental health, and we see that we've responded now to 8,000 mental health runs this year. Last year, same time, just under 7,000. So we see that these things are here for us to deal with on a daily basis. We didn't ask for this crisis, but this crisis is on our doorstep, and we have to effectively and professionally manage it. And so when we have days like today, where we get an opportunity to thank our governor, to thank Representative Carter, and Representative Farhat for this opportunity. We recognize that this is historic. This is the first time that this type of revenue sharing is going directly to public safety. This $3.1 million, and that .1 is very important because we have managed to the penny, is going to put these officers on the street, our MPOs, to put those additional MPOs on the street in our neighborhoods, in our parks, showing up at your homes, talking about those quality of life issues, those abandoned cars, all those things that don't necessarily result in a 911 call, but certainly make living in the city of Detroit when there's problems like that a little bit more difficult. Having those additional resources is going to be very impactful. And then we talk about our CIT, which we have here with us today, our crisis intervention teams, and our partnership with Duggan. And having those trained mental health professionals on those cars with our officers is invaluable. We've been able to do some incredible work. This crisis continues to show itself statistically and in reality. Just to give you some numbers, the actual to the date, to the minute number on mental health runs is 8,667, over 7,705 last year. When you look at the number of suicides in progress, last year this time 778, 899 this year. And this team celebrates what they call a save rate, meaning that they've been able to stop 898 of the suicides in progress. We did lose one because it happened as the officers were pulling up. That's just incredible work. And to have these additional 11 officers out there, bringing that number to 30 officers, that's going to be out there managing this crisis as one part of a bigger plan really does literally equate to saving lives. So again, thank you to our governor. Thank you to Representative Farhat, Representative Carter, Representative Whitsett for your vision, for your support of this department, and support of this very, very important work. I would like to pause a moment here and just show you a quick video of what the crisis intervention team does as trained by D1. I see one of our partners here, Ms. Smith, just to give you some context into what they do.
We are the behavioral health specialists in partnership with the Detroit Police Department.
As crisis intervention trained Detroit police officers, we are here to help and protect and serve our citizens and visitors who might be experiencing a crisis.
Together, we will co-respond with patience, integrity, and assistance for any person in crisis within our community.
Our fully marked patrol vehicles are equipped with tools and resources that both our CIT police officers and behavioral health specialists offer to our citizens, along with the various resources. Our co-response vehicles have a green light on the front bar that helps to bring a sense of calmness to any situation.
When our crisis intervention team is dispatched to those in crisis, our goal is to build resilient communities in the 21st century. that allows citizens and law enforcement officers to provide solutions.
If you're in a crisis or may be in need of wraparound services, or if you know of someone who might need help, please dial 911 and request the Detroit Police Department Crisis Intervention Team. We will come to you.
So again, thank you. And at this time, I'd like to bring up Representative Farhat. Thank you.
And thank you for that, Chief White and Mayor Duggan. And one person I think that's very important for us to thank as well is our Speaker of the House, Joe Tate, who has made it a priority to bring back investment to the city of Detroit after years and budgets where we've seen a kind of backseat approach for kind of the priorities of Detroit. And so we need to really be thanking him as well today. But today is about the quality of life for the residents of Detroit. And with this investment, we're going to see an increase of quality of life for folks where they can feel safe in their homes. You know, when I knock the doors in my neighborhoods, I'll never forget where a lady on Piedmont Street in Northwest Detroit tells me the story where she's scared to let her grandkids play in her front lawn. Now, this was back in last year. She was scared of it. Now, I ended up getting in touch with some folks because there was an abandoned house on the block. And within a matter of 2 days, to a testament to the 6th Precinct, they were able to clear out an abandoned home that was being used for some illicit activity. And that's a testament to this police force and the way they've come to approach policing. You know, today's investment of $3.1 million to bring on 25 new officers, 11 of which, or 14 of which are going to be neighborhood police officers, those are folks that are going to get to know the neighborhood they're serving. Those are the folks that are going to get to know what looks suspicious, what looks real, what looks fine, and they're going to get to know when their neighbors are down on their luck and might need a hand up, and they're going to know how to help them when those times come. And that's the difference that we're making here today. And that is the important thing that I really want to emphasize, that public safety is much more than just patrolling a neighborhood. It's about getting to know your residents. It's about building a model that, which is what's happening here, that the nation can follow, where folks who are in crisis can be taken the entire way and connected to care, connected to treatment. And so there's no lapse, so there's no instance in which folks are going to be left back on the streets to hurt themselves or others. Now, while we're looking at the accomplishments of today, I can't help but also emphasize the work we're still doing in Lansing to stabilize these funds and to make sure that there's a new consistent stream of funding that cities like Detroit can count on, who are grappling with the rising endemic of violent crime we're seeing across the state. The Violence Prevention and Public Safety Trust Fund is something we started working on back in June with the support of the Speaker, the Mayor, and over nearly 40 of my colleagues in the Michigan Legislature. And that's something I'm looking forward to seeing move forward, being accomplished and brought to the governor's desk to sign. Because we have to codify and increase funding opportunities for things like this. Because we never want our city, and we never want to see public safety take a back foot. Because where public safety goes, so too does the quality of life for our residents in this city. And one person who has really been a guide to me in understanding the importance of these neighborhoods, aside from the activists and the folks that I've met, has been our Detroit Caucus Chair, Tyrone Carter. He's done a great job getting me to really understand the nuance of these issues. And so I want to invite him up here to share a few remarks as well, and thank him for his leadership on this.
Thank you, Rep. Farhat. I was going to call him by his first name. You know, leadership matters. So to the mayor and to the chief, I say thank you for being responsive to the needs of this community. As a lifelong Detroiter, born and raised, I'm not going anywhere. I've watched the good, the bad, and the indifferent. So we're in a position to make changes. So we've done that in Lansing. You know, when I retired, and I'm a retired officer from the Sheriff's Department, when I retired, we started the first crisis management unit at the Sheriff's Department because mental health is real. And what we've noticed during COVID, that it really went up and nobody had any answers. So for this leadership to come and say, hey, we need some crisis intervention teams, and I shouldn't do this, but I'm gonna send a shout out to my 4th Precinct NPOs, Taylor, Ruiz, and LeBron. Now see, I know them by name because what they do is really important. They patrol, and also Dale Dorsey over in the 3rd Precinct. But they get to know the residents, and it's more than just patrolling and having conversations. When people call, they know who they are, and quality of life is important. So it's not a one-time call. So this was an easy lift for us to say, okay, what do you need in the city to make things better? We need more NPOs. We need more crisis intervention units. So we can sit down and have that conversation. We're at a point in this state where we're able to do it. I hope we're able to continue to do it, because everybody wants what they move into a community for: a safe quality of life to raise a family and just enjoy the house that you paid for. So with that, who do I turn it over to? Turn it back over to the chief.
All right, thank you. Good job, sir. All right, with that, we will take any questions.
Hey, it's Andrea from the Detroit Free Press. Just a few questions. You mentioned that there will be 30 CIV officers now, and then how many MPOs total will there be as well now?
Well, the total number I will get to you. We're going to add an additional 15 to, what's the number? What did I break them down?
Wasn't it 14?
14.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we'll get the total number, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then all of the 3.1 million, and it was 3.1 million, right?
Yes,
Correct? Okay, all
3.1.
of that is going to the city of Detroit specifically?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure there was no overlap. All right, thank you.
All right.
Hey, Chief, Malachi from Bridge Detroit. Can you give us an update on progress toward filling those vacancies and how you're confident that we're basically adding 25 new positions that need to get filled?
Yeah, as we talked about earlier, I'm very confident that we're going to hit that number. We have a metric that we follow. We're not going to in any way go away from our hiring standards, but we are aggressively pursuing members that want to come back to the department. We're offering bonuses to those who want to return. Certainly those who are already certified police officers around the country that we're looking for that are in good standing. Those that are certified police officers in our state that are in good standing. We've got a bonus program to bring them in. And then we're recruiting from our city. We're in our schools. We've got a program that's running. I see Captain Leonard Gilbert here now. There's a program that runs out of our Chief Neighborhood Liaison that's tied directly to Detroit Public Schools for those kids who are graduating this summer, who choose to get into public safety, either police, fire, or EMS, that are thinking of not going away to college right away. We've got a track for them as well. With all those things together, confident that by the end of the year we should be at our full numbers.
And these positions for the MPOs and the mental health, the CIT team, are those specifically like advertised at those positions? I think like new recruits have to be MPOs for a little bit, right? And then the CIT team seems like it's more of a specialized. So just being able to fill that, it's a little bit more. I think you're looking for a specific type of person to do that role, right?
Absolutely, and very good question. So what happened is we will backfill those numbers with new recruits. So the officers, like right now on a transfer list, we have some officers that are trying to transfer into CIT. The good captain has already told me that she wants an additional 10, and she's already identified them. I couldn't give them to her because I needed them on patrol. What this will allow me to do is put new recruits on patrol in the neighborhoods and bring in those seasoned veteran CIT officers, get them the training, and get them deployed as well.
Sorry, I just had one more question.
Chief, if I could, we should mention one other thing. We have 122 officers in the academy today. We're bringing in 35 a month. But I also want to thank the legislature. Representative Carter just left and Senator Santana. But we've got the first class that is signing an agreement that if they are poached away by another department, they have to repay the 6 months of training costs. And I want to thank the legislature for that. We're not losing our senior officers. We had been losing some where basically they allowed us to subsidize the training and then tried to take them away. So all of these strategies are fitting together.
That's really interesting. One last question for our remaining lawmaker here. I was curious about the long-term support for the Shot Stoppers program. Obviously, we're just getting off the ground with this, and I think the data that will be collected will say a lot about the success of it. But how are you looking at this program? What's your thought on the state stepping up to provide some funding for that?
Yeah, and for that, I'll go to some of the legislation that we already have pending, right? Being the Public Safety and Violence Prevention Trust Fund, which would allocate dollars specifically to municipalities based on their proportion of violent crime. That would then allow them to allocate those dollars pursuant to the needs of that city. So if a city looks at it and says we want to invest in these community partnerships and use a portion of dollars we get from this trust fund, we can do that. And if they say, well, we need to invest it somewhere else, they can do that as well. I think the partnerships that we're launching are exciting in Detroit. I really do. And I think there's an avenue for all of these different partnerships to work in tandem to combat violent crime. And I also want to mention, I know someone mentioned about the $3.1 million being specifically for Detroit. In this last budget, there's also been huge funding opportunities for public safety for municipalities statewide. And so that was an emphasis that this legislature took, is to fund public safety and to make sure that we're funding our officers and funding public safety broadly.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Victor Williams here with Local 4. You guys spoke about the force being fully staffed again in the future. And the mayor kind of spoke about it a little bit, but is there anything else that you guys are doing to make sure that these officers stay here and actually stay with the fully staffed numbers?
Well, I think, as we talk about this and as we looked at our plans for staffing, the officers have always wanted to stay. In large part, they were leaving for economic reasons. That's factual based on just looking at the data of the attrition rate now that has dropped considerably since the new contracts. And the number of officers, I've got 80 officers that have attempted to come back to the department since the new contract, 80. And we've accepted about half of them. And we've got a tremendous number that are attempting to come back now. I don't have the exact number with me today, but every day I'm getting an application. I'm very confident in the work of our recruiting department. I'm very confident, I would not be saying so if I wasn't, that we're going to be where we need to be by the end of the year. As the mayor indicated, we've got 122 in the academy right now. We graduated a class last month. Uh-oh. Oh, boy. Got to bend your legs. Everybody dip your legs. You know how we stand there. Don't stand under tension. Yeah. She'll be fine. Happens when you lock your legs in attention. If you need to go give her some help, though, please feel free. All right, thank you. Getting back to what I was saying, I'm very confident that we're going to be okay with the numbers. I see them every day. I live them. I lose sleep over them. So I like the direction we're going. 122 in the academy, the new contract, in addition to the retention programs that we have in place. I'm pretty confident.
And then one last question. We have a few more weeks of warm weather left. With the legal block parties going on, is there anything else you guys are doing to really, really crack down on them?
Well, yeah, we're doing a lot, but I'm not going to share it all with you. But we're doing some things. We're working with social media. We've got some intelligence out there, not just in social media, but officers on the ground, undercover units. Working in our neighborhoods, our MPOs are doing a phenomenal job of pushing information to us. See, and that's the unique thing about the MPOs that can't be overstated. The fact that they're on the grounds and they know the residents, and they're not tied to the radio where they have to go from run to run. They're able to walk the neighborhoods, talk to the community. They get the phone calls, and where they're saying, hey, there's going to be a problem. It's not that we don't want people to have a good time. It's just we can't have a party at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, people shooting, those types of things. And that intelligence is brought to us, and then we proactively go out. And we want to make sure that people know the rules and having a party and disrupt those parties that are unauthorized.
There we go. Thank you, Chief.
Good afternoon, everyone. Eli Newman, WDET Detroit NPR. I was told I only have time for one question, so I'm going to try to jam it into one. But I'm curious more so about crisis treatment, what kind of happens after the CIT team responds. And I guess I also want to address the availability of mental health beds and what's going on there, and if the state funding has put aside substantial enough funding to address that.
Well, we're happy to hear that there are some long-term treatment facilities, which I think are the key to this crisis, that are already in motion, already being built. More needs to be done, but certainly we're moving in the right direction, recognizing that we need long-term treatment facilities and beds. And for the first time in many years, I'm hearing that, and I know of that happening right here in Detroit. Long-term treatment, medication, services is important. This crisis for us as police officers, we have to do something. We had to proactively react, and that's what this opportunity gives us an opportunity to do. But you know, as I say often, we didn't ask for this, we didn't want it, but it's on our doorstep, and we have to responsibly manage the crisis that we're seeing. Not even just a Detroit problem. I talk to colleagues around this country, and they're all seeing upticks in mental health crisis runs. And when you think of it, you look at the unpredictable nature of someone who is in crisis, and you see the uptick in violence around our country. There's certainly a correlation or correlation between the two.
Good afternoon, Chief. For Awesome Channel 7.
Yes, sir.
First of all, congratulations on today's announcement, and
Thank
to
you.
the mayor as well. You know, we go out on the streets and we speak to a lot of folks. By no means am I saying Detroit police does not do anything. People love when Detroit police show up to the door and protect them. We read an incident yesterday where, and there's a question to that. We read an incident yesterday that the police response time took about like 40 minutes. Now, that's just one incident. No, by no means, once again, I'm saying that's the average response time. But when we did take a look at the priority 1 response time, it was like around 14 minutes, average response time. My question is, with all these changes that you're announcing today and future plans as well with hiring more officers, is that going to impact and reduce the response time? And also, is there anything else that's being done to reduce that response time?
Well, to response time, the issue of response time hasn't been an issue. Our average response time is 14 minutes. Most times it's 12. Again, something that we monitor. We look at the national standard of response time. We have response time as low as 2 minutes. You know how averages work. Obviously, we're talking about over the course of time and hundreds of thousands of runs in many instances. So, you know, absent any context in what you're specifically talking about, it's almost impossible for me to give you a clear answer on that. But we're oftentimes well below the national standard on response time. So I guess I'll need a little bit more information that we could talk through.
I've reached
after
out to
this.
your team for an answer for that specifically, but we don't have to get into that. But just in general, we've heard from the community a couple of times the response time. So that's the only thing that I just wanted to highlight. If there's anything that's being done to reduce that even more.
Well, we want to get there as quickly as possible in any run. Again, we benchmark with the national standard. We have our own policies in place. We have a data set that I monitor hourly on my phone. And any time that we're out of line with response time, there's an immediate reaction to find out what occurred. You know, I need some specifics. And again, we don't have to do that right here now, and we'll be more than happy to respond to you. I'd like to see the call when it came in, the priority code that was on it. Priority 1s were averaging about 12 to 13 minutes. 2s were somewhere around 18. But again, it depends on specifically what we're talking about. Today's focus, though, is neighborhood police officers and crisis intervention. And certainly those can have an effect on response time. You know, depending on so many different variables, though. So it really, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to get into a response time connection with this presentation.
Thank you.
All right.
Ray Strickland, CBS News Detroit. Unrelated question, and I'll make it quick. I just wanted to know if you can give me your thoughts on the lawsuit, Portia Woodruff lawsuit, claiming that she was falsely arrested after being misidentified by facial recognition technology.
Yeah, I'm looking at that lawsuit. I'm actually reading the lawsuit myself. I'm looking at our policies to see if our policy was followed, if there's some improvement opportunities in the policy, and I'll have more to say about that after I go through it. I was made aware of it a couple days ago. We've been spending a lot of time as a team looking at all aspects of it. As you know, we've had facial recognition for a number of years. We have strong policy. We have a number of different provisions in which you can use facial rec and many that when you can't. So we're going to just make sure that those were followed first and foremost. We're going to take this very seriously. What I've heard thus far is very concerning. We're not taking it lightly, but I want to look at everything before I make a decision on where we go next.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you, everyone.